Welcome, welcome. This is Nerds Talk. I'm Steve,
I'm Kevin.
and today we're going to talk about satanic murder. But I just want to run a few things by you first, though, because there's some crazy, stupid news. So, first piece of stupid news, right? There's some crazy fool walking around stealing dummies from babies
Right.
in
Okay.
so in Harlow on the 10th of February and then the 7th of August. Some guy. Look, oh, there's a picture of him, but like a picture from behind, wearing a black hoodie. Could be a young person, but yeah, several incidents of this person taking dummies out of babies' mouths. Um, on one
Right.
on one occasion, a baby was actually assaulted in while it's happening. I mean, what the hell is that all about? And police have released this image, but it's obviously just a picture of someone behind. I reckon you'd probably identify the hoodie he's wearing and bag he's wearing. Do you know what I mean? If you knew him, but yeah, Essex police have asked anyone who recognises this person or has seen someone match the description or acting suspiciously to come forward.
So
What?
is like the baby gonna have to make a statement and attend court?
Yeah, yeah,
I think that just shows someone badly needs some dummies. I think we should have like a Just Giving page to get some dummies for this guy.
I tell you what, though, any parent, I'm surprised this kid hasn't been knocked out because any parent knows that was if you got a kid like one of my kids loved a dummy. If they lose it or they sometimes they just chuck it out the pram, especially when they're littler or the buggy. Um, as soon as they lose it, it's a nightmare because you have to then, if you haven't got a spare, you have to then go and buy one. Otherwise, you get crying child. So there's no way I'd be letting anybody just take a dummy out of my kid's mouth.
So here's a question around dummies. Can you remember a period in your life when you actually used a dummy as a child?
I can't remember. No, apparently I loved a dummy when I was a kid, but I think I think when I was about 3 or 4, um, I mean 3. My mum and dad took it off as they said. Santa, it was Christmas time, and they said that it's time to leave this for Santa now. And so I went, okay, and that was it.
See, I wonder. I know my mum remember her saying that child's too old for a dummy and stuff like that, and I think maybe I wasn't given a dummy because I can't breathe through my nose comfortably,
All
and I
right.
wonder if like the dummy encourages you to have your mouth closed or something more as a child, and I've never
Be,
developed that habit.
be.
That's why I'm a
Well,
bit nasally.
my you talking about dummies. My youngest, we were just taking him off his dummy. He was like, he must have been 3 at the time. We were just taking him off, trying slowly getting it away from him, and then you get to the point where you're kind of like, oh, you just have a dummy for like nighttime, and that's a really good position to be in. So we were just kind of building up to that point, and then he went and fell out of our bedroom window and ended up in hospital and everything, didn't he? So
So gave
which
him another dummy.
so when he first, well, the second thing he said when he came out of the coma and everything was uh Dodie. He said first of all it was like Daddy, and then he said Dodie. So it was
Jody.
Dodie, yeah. So he really wanted his dummy. So obviously he had a dummy for a lot longer than he would have had if he didn't have an accident. But I mean that's another horror story for another time, isn't it?
See, if I had a kid that, well, I've got to wean them off their dummy, I'd probably get them addicted to something else. I don't know, like crack cocaine or heroin.
So, but I mean, it says that when he was a kid, to help him sleep, his mum and dad used to his dummy in whiskey. I mean, no wonder he's an alcoholic.
Well, I used to get like if I had a toothache as a kid, dabbing my finger in some whiskey and dabbing it onto the gum.
Yeah,
Maybe that's why I like whiskey.
yeah, maybe it does
No, I'm
numb
not an
a little
alcoholic
bit.
though.
It does numb you. It'll numb your gums a little bit, won't it? So it probably helps with teething. I think that's where it probably came from. Not that anybody would do it nowadays, but back then it was acceptable. I think
Teething
anything
problems. There you
sort of
go.
80s and before was anything goes really.
Never did me any harm.
Well, then the second piece of news is it's just a tough story about a Texas woman, right, who was attacked by a snake and a hawk all at the same time while she was mowing the lawn. And you can guess what happened, can't you? She's she, she's mowing the lawn and out pops a snake. So she's like, ah, snake. At the very, just by coincidence, at the very same time, a hawk is overhead going, haha, there's a snake
Snake.
to eat. So it comes flying down. The snake goes to bite her at the same time as it swoops down to get the snake, but she's in the way.
That's got to be like getting struck by lightning. It's very rare. And
Yeah,
then to get hit by a snake and a hawk at the same time has got to be statistically very rare. She needs to enter the lottery stat.
yeah. She scratched all her arm and everything. There's a blood everywhere. So she got done. She got proper done. Oh,
I don't think I'd admit to that. I think I'd keep that one to myself and hope the neighbours didn't see that.
so you'd be like, oh, what did you do to your arm? Oh, it was lawnmower. I got caught in the lawnmower. Yeah, that's what happened. So there you go.
Oh,
She
yeah,
wasn't
top
actually bitten by
stories.
the snake, but she was sliced open um,
I've
by the
I've got
hawk.
I've got some true news story that's actually happened in my area.
Oh yeah,
So, literally, one street away from me, there was a big surge, and a load of houses blew up. Um, some houses caught on fire, and we've got about 500 houses in the next road from me without power for the last 24 plus hours.
jeez.
They've got like the roads cordoned off. It's an absolute. They've declared it a critical incident. I'm like, bloody hell! That would have taken out all my computer and everything, and probably all of my writing that's on my computers.
Is anyone hurt?
I don't think anyone was hurt.
So like a
Just
gas.
blew a load of fuses and electrical appliances and everything, and that's weird. I'm wondering, is that some kind of like a, well, we're going to hack into some cyber hacking or something, and they've just worked out how to make electrical surges in junction boxes.
You never know.
Yeah,
It's
so
the
back up your data.
it's the future. I mean, it is the kind of thing that's been talked about since we went through the whole fears of through the decades in the last episode. It is the kind of thing that people have been afraid of since, was it the 90s?
Yeah.
Actually, 2000s, we'll say, being generous. People have been scared of
Cyber
this kind
attack,
of
yeah.
cyber attacks. Yeah.
Well, I don't know though. I'm going to go back to the 80s because I was terrified that World War III is going to be started by some kid hacking into some government computer, aka the film War Games.
I actually think that World War Three is not what we think. So traditionally, a war is where people are getting bombed. There's gunfights, and um, I actually think we're going through World War Three now, and it's
I
like
think we are.
and it's a culture war. It's kind of like what do you call it, psyop? It's like, let's just say China have infiltrated uh, the culture, infiltrated and influenced our culture. This is mainly American. Obviously, American stuff filters through to the UK quite a bit, and luckily we don't. I feel like we don't get as extreme as the Americans do, but I feel like that the China. I'm not saying this is true, but the Chinese could have, you know,
Allegedly.
just allegedly destroying Americans or the Western society from the inside, so we destroy ourselves. It's a little bit. I think I talked about this. Uh, when I was talking about AI destroying the world. A few weeks ago, the whole news cycle was around AI, like, the world's going to end because of AI or whatever. Well, I don't think the world is going to end because of AI. I think it's going to be us ending our own society, our own, you know what I mean, from the inside. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I
Corrupted.
mean that all the when you hear about the political interference of Russia and the elections and then fake news all coming out, you can start seeing they're planting the seeds of don't trust your news, don't trust what you're reading here, don't trust them, and then slowly feeding in stuff. Now we know that they can influence social media,
Yeah.
feeding stuff in through social media, influencing people.
Well, here's the
Maybe
problem.
there's a whole study in psyops that they're using.
Well, no, I think you've got this round the wrong way. I think that um, you can't trust the news. you can't trust governments, right? I think that's the truth of it. The psyop bit is the people that are completely brainwashed into thinking that that do believe the news and do believe the government. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Because they're the ones that seem to go loopy. I suppose a lot of people would say they're the leftists, and everyone else is like extreme right, racist, homophobic, misogynist.
Oh, I suppose you've seen such divisions that I've never seen before with Brexit. There was a lot
Uh-huh.
of divisions there, and
Yeah.
people would disagree on political points before. No, never anything like one side having a go at those that voted Brexit, others having a go at the Remoaners and all that.
Yeah.
And then when you go through, you've had such a bigger division between whatever your views you might have on a certain incident that occurred between 2020 and 2022
Hmm.
that divided a lot of people with different opinions over
Yeah.
certain injection treatments and stuff. And it's just been more division, division, division.
Yep, and all through, and the way they do it is fear on top of fear on top of fear on top of fear, just like we talked about in the last episode.
Yeah, and then multiple sources. So who the hell do I believe now? I don't know what. Yeah, so that's a
That,
whole other topic that we've kind of
God, yeah.
revisiting stuff. But
Yeah.
um, so you wanted to talk about satanic murders. So before you go into that, I just want to say I watched the new Evil Dead film last night. I don't know if
Oh
you've
yeah.
seen any of the Evil Dead films before.
No, no, no. I've seen parts of them. I think when I was young, I did watch one, but I can't
Oh
really.
well, the new one, Evil Dead Rise, really good, I thought.
Oh, hold on.
And
Yes, of course I've seen the Evil Dead Rise. I went to
oh,
see it
you
at the
have.
cinema when it first came out.
Well, there you go. It was, I
Yeah,
thought, very gory,
yeah,
quite creepy, self-contained. And what I liked about that, and this does lead into the satanic murders and things, but the fact is they didn't actually mess with the original Evil Deads, and that the
yeah,
remake in 2013, they've included it in a clever way of being part of the actual overall franchise. Because in this Evil Dead Rise, we learn that the Necronomicon, Book of the Dead that they find, is one of three books. So obviously we've got the book of the Necronomicon that was in the original 80s movies. The second book was from the remake, which turns out wasn't a remake now. And then this one. So it all keeps canon. All of them are all like part of that universe. And what a clever way I thought of having it like there's more than one of these books, and each of those different franchises that have been made over the decades are just a different version of the book they've had. Thought
Hmm.
really well done.
Well, that's interesting because I don't know a lot about the Evil Dead. That's why I didn't click on when you said Evil Dead because the way I say Evil Dead is like how it was, and I didn't really like I said, I haven't really I know about them, but you know I haven't watched them all. But
Well worth a
when I
watch.
watched the Evil Dead Rise, um, it wasn't anything to do with what I originally thought of as the Evil Dead. So but you obviously you know much more about it than me. But I really enjoyed the film as well. I thought it was really well done. One of the
Yeah, and
better.
it was just really well done. That whole thing with like, because obviously the Evil Dead is about the original. They go to a cabin in the wood. Someone finds a creepy old book with a recorded translation. They play the tape that of the translation. It awakens the Evil Dead. And then obviously the remake, the same thing. And it's obviously that these are just different versions of different books. They're all the Necronomicons, but there's three of them. So the
Yeah,
three evil books. And I just thought, what a really clever way. But it's well worth watching the original and the TV series, Ash versus the Evil Dead as well.
yeah. I thought they were all
The
kind of
originals are a bit
comedies
more
though.
human. The first one, Evil Dead, is quite dark, grim, very serious um, horror. The
Hmm.
second one, it's a more light-hearted, still a horror, but it's some of its black humor in it, and it's a little bit, there's some more funnier moments in it. The third one, where basically the main protagonist get at the end of Evil Dead 2, he gets transported through a portal back to medieval times where he's becomes the prophesized one that will rid the world of the deadites, and he's like trapped in the medieval past. So the third one is about him in the medieval times, and it's just all out comedy with Bruce Campbell as comedic genius. And then the TV series is based on that.
uh,
It's even funnier.
that must be how I view it then. by the. I've always judged it by the third one. I think that might be the one that I've seen a lot of.
Yeah, that's just all call out comedy. The first
Yeah.
two are quite grim. I've even seen The Evil Dead the musical in Vegas. That was awesome.
Oh, really?
They're like, yeah, so you've got like a splatter zone with blood splattering people and stuff like that, and lots of nice songs about them going on a holiday in the woods and this bodily dismemberment and stuff.
Well, talking about dismemberment, I want to
What
talk.
about dismemberment?
I want to talk about the
Hang on, I am eating now. Now I choose the worst time to eat.
Yeah, you're gonna love this. Gonna make your food taste much nicer.
Mm.
So I want to talk about the disappearance of a Texan student in March 1989, which sparked a nationwide manhunt. And it happened on the border town of Matamoros. Matamoros. Hopefully, I'm not butchering that name. And it's a place where students from the University of Texas go out on a night out,
Mm.
bars, booze, living it up. Um, and there was a guy called Mark Kilroy,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a pre-med student from Texas. And he was well behaved, 21-year-old, not crazy or anything. Um, he had quite a religious family, and on the 11th of March, 1989, he crossed the Rio Grande Bridge into Matamoros with several of his mates.
Mm-hmm.
It was for the spring break holiday, so
Oh, it sounds
oh,
like a nice story. I like it.
yeah, it's very nice. Um, Unfortunately, he ended up as a human sacrifice in a horrific
Ah.
black magic cult killing.
Ah. I thought it was
uh,
going to be an idyllic road trip you were going to tell us about.
well, he was murdered, right, by an American drug dealer, gang leader, and black magic practitioner, guy
Oh.
called Adolfo Constanzo. And that all happened. So, like, picture this, right? On the 14th of March, um, Constanzo's henchmen, they were prowling the streets and the alleys, with instructions specifically to pick up an Anglo for the purposes of a ritual slaughter.
Oh.
So it was 2 in the morning when they snatched Kilroy. What are you doing?
Oh, I'm opening a packet of fridge raiders. Go on. Talking about dismemberment makes me hungry.
Well, so he's returning on foot across the border at knife point. Kilroy, this kid, is bundled into the back of a pickup truck, and
Jesus.
he's driven 32 kilometers to like this old cattle ranch called Rancho Santa Elena, and it was one of the headquarters of Constanzo's drug gang. And the gang
Mm.
members, they gagged him and blindfolded him and threw him in this little wooden shack, um, which was like stinking in there, like flies and everything. And he was in there for like 12 hours. Um,
Jesus.
yeah, he was. After that, he was taken out. So 12 hours in this little shack, and then they took him out. He must have been thinking, "What the hell is going on?" They untied him, and then they gave him some food. And the
Right.
gang promised that they're not going to harm him. Nothing's going to happen.
Oh, that's all right.
And then they said, "Come this
I
way."
believe them.
And then they said, "Come this way." And they took him to a yard behind the shed, and they said, "Just kneel there."
Oh yeah. What is this? Just like part of the formalities to let me go? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Constanzo, the head honcho, he comes along and just executes him. Single blow with a machete to the back of the neck. Bosh, dead.
Whipped his head off.
Well, Constanzo, along with his witch priestess, who was called Sarah Aldretti, and um, uh, they basically just began like this ritual mutilation of Kilroy's corpse. So they took his head, hacked it off,
Mm.
so that they could remove the brain. They removed
Jesus.
Then they removed his legs, cut off just below the knees. His
Mm.
genitals were then torn off, and his spinal cord was ripped from his body.
That's a bit extreme, that. I mean,
unbelievable.
Oh, to what purpose? Just they just fancied killing him.
Well, so so at the time, so right, imagine this, right? Constanzo, he's 26 years old at this point, right? He's a red-headed Cuban American who's making a lot of money out of drug dealing. He's a smuggler, he's a gang leader, and he's running like half a ton of marijuana every week across the border into the US, as well as smuggling, large quantities of cocaine and stuff like that. And he's also building up like a wealthy uh, clientele as well. But this guy's involvement in black magic stemmed from his childhood. Um,
Uh-huh.
his mother exercised like considerable power within the local Cuban American community in West Miami. Um, and she was basically a witch. I think they called them a bruja or a bruja. Um,
Okay.
and that's like part of the uh, Afro-Caribbean religious cult of Santeria. She conducted rituals involving trance states and animal sacrifice, and intimidated
Mm.
neighbors who crossed her by leaving headless birds and other menacing symbols on their doorsteps. um,
Yeah, he's outdone her.
yeah, and then in 1984, they moved to Mexico to enter the drug business, and that's where So he's got a mother who was into all of this black magic stuff, and then they moved to Mexico to be, you know, drug lords basically.
And he's
And
got into it.
Constanzo controlled his gang members by carrying out rituals and blood sacrifices. And he
Oh, so
claimed
they
that,
got scared, like, oh, I don't want to like
yeah,
mess with him.
well, yeah, but he claimed that um that like to the gang, he did all of these things, saying that this is what you've got to do to become wealthy and you become immune to bullets from the police. So it wasn't
Mm.
just, intimidating them and stuff like that. It was all about he brainwashed them into thinking that they would become like rich and immortal, basically, or invincible.
Mm.
And he actually chose his priestess Sora Aldretti um, as his companion because uh, she was actually a student from Texas as well. And but I suppose he brainwashed her as well. But he initiated certain members of the gang as executioners, and he would give them scar tattoos with razor blades. So
Oh, this
this
is
is
serious, like cult kind of like.
yeah, yeah, mega
Ah.
violent in it.
How many did they end up killing?
Uh,
How many killings?
well, I don't think anyone knows how many in total. Probably a lot. But in the 9 months before Kilroy's death, Constanzo began following a black magic branch of Santeria called uh, Palomeum. It might be Palomeumbi. I'm
Okay.
obviously I might be getting that totally wrong, the pronunciation. But he
Is
started.
this like devil worshipping it then, or is it some other like other demons or spirits or what?
It's spirits, isn't it? It's black magic. So,
So it's not
so
Satan. That's Christian, really, Christianity, I suppose,
yeah,
isn't it?
not specifically Satanism, yeah, but
But dark, kind
but
of like evil spirits
yeah,
to get your
yeah.
power. Okay,
um,
cool.
And he started, so 9 months before Kilroy's death, that's when this guy started making actual human sacrifices. And he used the shack on the ranch as like the killing house. But
Uh,
yeah, but a month after Mark Kilroy disappeared, Mexican narcotics police were chasing a car that was driven through an interception roadblock, and they caught up with it at the ranch. So they arrested the driver of the car, and like they routinely showed Kilroy's photograph to the caretaker of the ranch, and then it seems a bit odd, doesn't it? They've just chased the car there, so like they're like showing photo while they're there. Might as well show some photographs of a missing person, and
mm.
This caretaker recognized Kilroy, and he directed the police to the last place he'd seen him, and
Uh-huh.
it was the shack where Constanzo held the victim.
Oh, the Killing
So
Shack.
the killing shack,
That's a good
or,
title for a song.
or is it the
The Killing
pre-killing
Shack.
shack? Is it the pre-killing shack? But the police decided to investigate the shack, and inside
Yeah.
they just found the walls splashed with old and new blood. In a, in an
Creepy.
in an iron cauldron, they discovered what turned out to be Kilroy's brain.
Ugh.
Sick, man, sick.
It must have been decomposed though, wasn't it?
It depends what it was in. It might have been um,
Oh, like vinegar or
pickled.
something.
Yeah,
Pickled
but
brain.
yeah. There was like just blood everywhere, dried on the walls. There was a turtle shell, a horseshoe. These are the tame parts, and a human spinal cord, and several
Oh,
limb bones as well. But you know
nice. We haven't had a decent serial killer like that in ages, have we?
nah, not for a while.
No,
Yeah, yeah, and
maybe the Dharma.
anyone else would call him a serial killer, but this because it's sort of maybe because it's like sort of linked to gangs and stuff, and I don't know, maybe it's something else, but
Or
yeah,
maybe they only got him for one death.
yeah, maybe we might get to that, but in other containers there was things like a goat's head, human hair, and dismembered chickens, and the whole area, as you can imagine, just reeked of death and putrefaction because it was hot there, and there was flies and maggots all over.
I wonder what he was asking the dark spirits to do for him, like keep me safe from the police. That backfired.
well, yeah, well, I don't think it's keep you safe. It's just like it's reinforcing a belief that you are some kind of god. It's like narcissism, really, isn't it? It's to, I mean, in his case, it's a way to like rule over people and have power.
But then, was he getting them to sacrifice them to him, or was he getting the sacrifices for a god that he worshipped?
They they would just do whatever he said, basically.
Hmm.
I think he was the one. He was the one mainly doing the actual rituals, but they were obviously involved in it. He's kind of like the cult leader sort of thing.
Yeah, was it the old Manson? Wasn't he a cult leader? Was it Charles Manson?
Yeah, he had yeah. Didn't Charles Manson not actually do any killing, but he got people to do the killing?
I'm not too familiar. I know that they broke into a house and murdered a family, didn't
Yeah,
they? And
and
yeah, you might be right. He might not have done it, but he
he told
enticed everyone else to do it. Yeah.
he told them to do it. Well, I mean, in this case, the police did excavations around the ranch, and eventually they revealed shallow graves containing at least 13 mutilated corpses.
Uh,
So they interrogated the caretaker and like other people in the area, and then they swiftly sort of rounded up several of Constanzo's gang members, and he forced one of them um, to evacuate graves in front of journalists and camera crews. Can you imagine? You're like, right, you gang member, um, come on, we've got a load of journalists here. Start digging.
yeah.
So, I mean, that's mad. It's not something that you would get in this country, but
No, well, it was the 80s. Things happened different
yeah, exactly.
then.
But none of the corpses were intact. Obviously, just dismembered all of them. And
Oh.
so uh, they all used. So this whole gang, right? They used knives, guns, clubs, fire, and they hung people as well. So
They've gone
they
all in on this.
they didn't just dismember people. They did it all.
I
Think
like their
think
commitment.
Yeah, they tortured people with razor blades. They mutilated people by removing nipples and genitals,
Oh,
ears, and they even ripped the hearts from some of their victims.
oh, that's from like Temple of Doom, Kalimar.
Well, it's funny you should say that because they were imitating the Aztecs.
They're all about deaths, aren't they?
Yeah, and one of the bodies was actually a police officer. Two of them belonged
Uh,
to like a rival drug gang, but most of the victims had just been abducted at random, in random places. But all the police that discovered the shack shared the beliefs, superstitions, and fears like of everybody else, and they had no difficulty in recognizing the mark of the Palo Miombi rites. So they must have all of them known about how these rituals are carried out. So as soon as they've seen how these bodies have been mutilated and everything, and the whole setup in the shack, they knew straight away what this was.
there you go.
Uh, So yeah, also in the shack was like a large number of ritual objects, and so it was like they had the cauldron, and apparently
A
that's
witch's cauldron. Oh,
yeah.
well, the cliche.
I think it's I'm not 100% sure on how to pronounce this, but it's gangas or ngangas. That's what they call the
Uh,
cauldrons. They had like long candles, as you'd expect, half
yeah,
burnt
oh, yeah.
half burnt cigars, and chili
Oh,
peppers,
we're
and
talking voodoo. This is like voodoo, then, isn't it?
yeah, that's what kind of black magic is, isn't it? Or
Uh,
that's what kind of maybe it's part of it. It depends on you. I think it depends on the level. You could practice voodoo, right? Which is
but
some
not
kind of
kill people.
yeah, exactly. It's some kind of level on the spectrum of black magic, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't. I've always thought like voodoo's kind of creepy and scary, but not really about killing, is it?
Yeah, normally about like hurting the people that you don't
Maybe a
like.
goat. Yeah, maybe a goat. You kill a
Maybe.
goat. I don't
Yeah.
know. I might be just like looking at all the. Who am I kidding? All my information that I've got about voodoo has come from Live and Let Die, a James Bond movie. So there we are.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, and bits from Indiana Jones.
Yeah, that's why I'm terrified of voodoo, I think, because of Live and Let Die and Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Well, Constanzo, he boiled hearts and brains, and he would stir them in a soup with the
Oh,
with the victims' bones. And then the gang sort of prayed. This is where how the gang took part in it, but they would pray to receive strength and courage and success from the life force of the people that they murdered. So in a way,
they
that's
still they've got to have positives.
it's a in a way it's kind of beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
You're a sick man, but then
Yeah.
oh god! But later, get this man. Later, the police brought in an exorcist to dispel the evil, and then they burnt the shack to the ground. But
It's cool.
but they're unable at first to find Constanzo. Obviously, they know it's him, um, and other gang members. So they went and searched his girlfriend's apartment, which revealed a blood-splattered altar, of course, and
Oh yeah. Follow
and
the trail of blood.
and weirdly, like a stash of children's clothing. This is where
Oh
it feels even more sinister now, doesn't it? And then more children's
yeah.
were found at Constanzo's apartment. And but the Mexican newspapers began to refer to the cultists as the narc. Oh my god! The narco satanic. I think it's basically the Satanists of Matamoros.
Well, they weren't Satanists though. They were
No, but it's
whatever
because of
that.
the rituals. It's kind of people
Uh,
say it as a Satanist thing, don't they? And while this was all going on, remember when we talked about this decade of through the 80s, people started getting scared of Satanism. Um,
yes, they did. Yeah.
because of the serial killers from the 70s and then movies that came out that were horror films and stuff.
Exorcist. Yeah. Evil Dead.
well this well this is just another reason for parents to suddenly start escorting their children to and from school when they might not have before. And back in Texas, communities, they closed the border basically. Church services were held for Kilroy, and people who people were just horrified at the whole black magic and human sacrifice. So, but in May 1989, the police finally caught up with Constanzo and three other members of his gang. Um, and they'd all been on the run. They were just hiding in this apartment in Mexico City. And as the heavily armed police began to move in, one of Constanzo's bodyguards began just firing wildly through the window. He had like an AK-47, just shooting away. So the police obviously start returning fire with machine guns. Um, and in the noise and the confusions, Constanzo calmly announced that it was time to die. And he embraced his fellow gang members and ordered each bodyguard to shoot them all. Oh no, sorry, he orders one bodyguard to shoot them all dead.
And then the bodyguard had to shoot himself.
Yep. So he agreed
Oh,
with a burst of automatic fire. He kills Constanzo's reign of terror. Kaboom! But, uh,
jeez.
but before Constanzo's gunman could reload and turn the gun on himself, the police burst into the apartment and arrest him.
Ah, he's like, oh, damn it.
Oh, damn, I was just about to kill myself. Oh,
And now I'm done for murder of like 20 odd people.
yeah. So with this guy's help, now he's helping the police. Um, they round up the rest of the drugs gang, and many of them just got like hefty jail sentences for their part in like 13 ritual murders at this ranch.
That's
Um,
a real Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of story, that.
yeah. Well, and this is the last part of this story. Really is about how if you've got a lot of money, you can really help yourself, especially in these kinds of scenarios, right? Because they used the members that got caught from like Constanzo's inner circle. They had like a ton of cash, right? They were wealthy. Um, so although they did get sentenced, it made their life in prison really comfortable. But the fear still remains that Constanzo's men could basically bribe their way out of the because Mexican jail is apparently notoriously corrupt. So there is now a fear, or there was a fear, that they could bribe their way out of jail and then resurrect the horrifying cult of drug running and then ritualistic murder.
Did they bribe themselves out of prison?
No, as far as I know, they haven't.
Huh.
They were too comfortable in prison. I mean, it's kind of probably safer in prison for them. Really, they've got a ton of cash. They can just live quite
Control
comfortably.
everything, yeah. Smuggle stuff in,
They
pay off the guards.
got their own little empire going in there. You know,
Yeah, they're probably well. I'm glad the story had a happy ending.
there are kind of more modern type versions of it. You know, like with families with certain beliefs who think their children or their child is
Oh, that does go on, yeah.
that kind of thing does go on, and that's horrific as well. But yeah, I can't really find much else through the 90s and then up to current times that
Interestingly enough, was it the Fred West cases was in the 90s,
Mhm.
and he had, correct me if I'm wrong, but he had like his own bar in his house, and he called it the Black Magic Bar or something like that. So
Mm.
there was a few hints of like being into like dark satanic-y type stuff there. Or he just thought it was a cool name of a cool bar, the Black Magic Bar or something. I don't know.
I mean, who in their right mind would believe that by killing somebody you're you're gonna you could take on their life energy and become even more wealthy and even more powerful?
Oh, you know what? There was that recent one in this country where, wasn't it the bloke? He killed two sisters and he had made an agreement with the devil that if he killed these two people, he'd win the lottery or something.
Oh,
I
was
don't think
this?
he did win the lottery, but it's the one with the controversial thing where the sisters, the police on the scene took pictures of their bodies or something. It was
Ah,
that one.
I remember this one. The guy, yes, because the guy hid behind a tree, didn't he? And
Yeah,
they'd gone for a picnic, and then everyone left, and the sisters just hung around for a bit longer, and he was just sitting there waiting. And then,
yeah, and he stabbed them up.
yeah, this was in a park in Wembley.
Yes, it was fairly within the last 5 years, I think,
Yeah, it
and
was
that
in
was to do with Satan.
it was in June 2020. He's
Ah,
I think he's literally just been sentenced.
oh
Oh
wow,
no,
that took a while.
he's due to be sentenced this month. So the
How's
guy
he
was
not
called.
been sentenced? Jeez.
I know sometimes it takes maybe because of COVID and all that. It's taken so long, hasn't it? It's knocked everything back. But the guy was called Zach Boland, and his victims were Bibba Henry and Nicole Smallman. Yeah, he attacked them with a knife, stabbed them multiple times, killed them.
Uh-huh.
No, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter, but he denied murder, and he's he's been found guilty of murder. Obviously, absolute nutcase. Horrible, horrible story. Maybe we'll do another episode on this, but there are people that claim that you can actually make a deal with the devil. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of people that have made them, I don't know, become quite wealthy, have made deals with the devil in return for a lifestyle, but I don't think that they always end up, from what I've read, they always end up destroying their own life or something happens. It's usually to do with drugs. They usually get addicted to drugs and then they lose everything in the end. It's that kind of
Yes, the
story.
moral is don't deal with the devil. He's a trickster.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Believe in yourself. Do it.
Yeah.
Do it of your own accord. You basically do anyway. I'm not really not sure how the devil's going to help you, other than give you the additional belief that you can do it.
I find serial killers fascinating, and there's a few of the serial killers. I think they're actually, when you look into it, it's just interesting to think what was going through their heads at the time. I mean, my favourite ones. I say one of my favourite ones, more the ones that I'm interested in. John Wayne Gacy is creepy. That's a really sinister one. You know, the one who dressed as a clown.
Yeah,
Um, and he used to invite people to his house and then strangle them and stuff like that.
yeah.
Obviously, Dharma is an interesting one. Fred West is a fascinating one. Purely the fact that you've got two people together that have committed these awful murders together, and you're like, how did they bring that up in conversation that they fancied killing people?
Well, there's always one of them that is up for it, and the other one is just kind of a follower, really. Or so you
Yeah, I'll
think.
do
Or
it if
so
you
you
want.
think. Yeah, or just sort of like maybe it's a bad combination of people. You know, sometimes you get a group of people who are just a bad combination for each other. You get this in work and all kinds of stuff, and they're just the wrong combination. One one takes it to one level, another one takes it to the next level, and then it just gets out of control. And
Yeah, you've gone too far now.
yeah, maybe wrong combination of two people who are a little bit sick, and all one of them has to do is give the other one permission to do it, and then they're giving each other permission, and next thing you know, it's just
We
out of
love it.
control.
We love killing.
we
I
and
can't
well,
believe I haven't done this sooner.
we're in the era where people love to hear about killing.
Oh, the famous evil killing is the Amityville horror. The guy that killed his whole family because he said the devil spoke to him and told him to do it.
Ah,
And he's still in Defoe, was it Ronald Defoe? Killed his entire family whilst they slept one by one, and then said the devil made him do it. I think he's still. I think he's due for parole.
what? Oh, I would have thought he'd be dead by now.
No, we're talking. He must have been. It happened in about 1975, I want to say. Um, so he would have been maybe 30 then. He could be in his 80s.
Right. So the Amityville murders. took place in Amityville, obviously, in New
What
York
year did I get the
in
year right?
almost 1974.
Oh, 1 year out.
So Ronald Defoe, it was Ronald Defoe Jr. shot his
Yeah,
killed his parents, two brothers, and two sisters while they were sleeping, and he claimed that he was possessed by demons that made him do it.
yeah,
And they'd only lived in that house for 28 days before the murders. And
yeah.
they had bought the house from George and Kathy Lutz, who had moved
Oh,
out
hang
20.
on, hang on.
Mm-hmm.
No, no, no. Are you right? So the Lutz family were the ones that moved in after the Defoe murders. So,
Oh,
I think you know what? Are you reading about? If you're reading about the Amityville films, Amityville is based on the people that fled the house after 28 days.
all right.
But they did Amityville 2 was basically a retelling of the Defoe murders.
Ah, so it was, but the Lutz claimed that the house was haunted. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the Lutz bought the house from the Defoes
Uh-huh.
after the killings, and they'd obviously got spooked that all these people got murdered in their house, and they fled, saying the house was haunted.
Well, weirdly, although some people believe that Ronald Defoe was possessed, others believe that it was the work of a satanic cult. Ho ho!
There's a lot of weird things because they also believe that another theory that the sister was involved in it as well, but then he killed his sister. And there's the weird thing that he went around his whole house shooting his family one by one with a shotgun, and it looked none of them woke up. They're all like lying flat on their face in the bed, like no one woke up or no one had any gunshots.
Are they
So
not
there's all this
drugged?
weird stuff. No, I
Well,
don't think they were drugged or anything, and the neighbours didn't
mm,
hear any shots. There's a lot of
that's it.
interesting stuff about the whole thing, but all the bits after the faux murders were the real interesting one because that actually happened, and it's creepy what happened, how he did it all.
Yeah.
But the actual Lutz stuff, that's that, believe it or not, it's they either got spooked or wanted to make some money out of a haunted house story.
Anyway,
Yeah.
anyway, anyway, might as well.
Outro.
Outro. You've been listening to Nerds Talk with me, Steve.
And Kevin.
And you can listen to the podcast on Audible, Spotify, blah blah blah. The rest of them. Check out my stuff at stephensweeney.co.uk and check out my comic book at um, bringcasefiles.com. Kev?
Check me out at kevingroverfiction.co.uk. New book out this month.
Can't wait. Boom. We'll talk about
Yeah.
that.
See you later. Bye.
Bye bye bye.